I'm 68 years old, and I need to tell you something that's going to sound completely insane. You're living through the best years of your life right now, and you have absolutely no idea. Worse than that, you're probably miserable, stressed, anxious, convinced that once you finally get that degree, that job, that promotion, that relationship, that amount of money in your bank account, then your life will really begin. I know this because I was you, and I wasted 15 years waiting for my life to start. Let me take you back to 1992. I was 36 years old, working 70-hour weeks at a consulting firm in Chicago. My marriage was falling apart, though I didn't want to admit it. I had a daughter I barely saw. I was making good money, finally, after years of struggling, and I told myself that justified everything, that all the sacrifice would be worth it. I remember one specific Tuesday in October. I was sitting in my office at 9 p.m. staring at a spreadsheet that didn't matter, eating cold Chinese food from a container, and my phone rang. It was my wife. "Emily asked where you were tonight," she said. "No hello, just that. I'm at work. She knows that. It was her school play. She was the lead. She's been talking about it for 6 weeks." I had completely forgotten. Not just forgotten to go, forgotten it existed. My 8-year-old daughter's biggest moment of the year, and it hadn't even registered in my brain. "I'll make it up to her this weekend," I said. My wife was quiet for a long moment. Then she said something I'll never forget. "You can't make up for time, David. You can make up for a lot of things, but not time." She hung up. I sat there in that office, surrounded by papers and projections and strategies for clients I didn't care about, and I felt nothing. That was the scary part. I didn't feel guilty. I didn't feel sad. I just felt numb and tired, so incredibly tired. But here's the thing. I didn't change. Not then. You know what I did? I worked even harder. I told myself that if I could just make senior partner, then I'd slow down. Then I'd be there for my family. Then I'd actually live my life. That's what we do, isn't it? We bargain with time. We make deals with an opponent who never negotiates. 3 years later, I made senior partner. I was 39. I had achieved everything I'd set out to achieve by 40, and you want to know what happened? Nothing. No confetti fell from the ceiling. No sense of completion washed over me. I went home, told my wife. She nodded and said, "That's nice," and went back to reading her book. We barely spoke anymore by then. Emily was 11 and had learned to stop expecting me at her events. I stood in my kitchen that night, looking at my family who felt like strangers, and realized I had won a game that didn't matter while losing everything that did. But I still didn't change. You know why? Because I didn't know how. I had been running on the same program for so long that I couldn't remember what else I was supposed to be doing. What did living even mean? I had a life. I had a career, a house, responsibilities. What else was there? I'm telling you this because I see the same pattern everywhere now. I see it in my son, who's 42 and works in tech and hasn't taken a real vacation in 7 years. I see it in my niece, who's 28 and has 3 side hustles and cries every Sunday night about going back to work Monday. I see it in the young guy at the coffee shop who's always on his laptop, grinding, hustling, building something that's going to make him successful. And I want to grab them all by the shoulders and shout, "You're doing it wrong. All of it. You think you're preparing for life, but you're actually avoiding it." But I don't do that because they wouldn't listen. I wouldn't have listened either. There's something about being young that makes you completely certain you have time, not even consciously. You just operate from this unexamined assumption that there will always be more time, more chances, more opportunities to do it right. I believed this until I was 51 years old. That's when my wife died. We had been divorced for 8 years by then. Amicable enough. We'd worked out our issues too late to save the marriage, but early enough to be friendly afterward. I saw her every few weeks when I picked up Emily, who was in college by then but still came home for holidays. Sarah had been complaining about headaches. Just headaches. She was 49 years old and healthy. She went to the doctor. They ran some tests. Brain tumor. Inoperable. 6 months, they said. She got 4. I spent more time with Sarah in those 4 months than I had in the previous 15 years of knowing her. Real time. Present time. We talked about everything. Our marriage, our mistakes, our daughter, our regrets. You know what she told me 2 weeks before she died? We were sitting in her hospice room. The morphine made her drift in and out, but she was lucid that afternoon. She looked at me and said, "I forgave you a long time ago for not being there, but I don't think you've forgiven yourself. And David, you're still doing it. You're still not there." I started to argue, to defend myself. I had been there every day for her. I had rearranged my whole schedule. She shook her head. "Not for me, for yourself. You're 51 years old and you're still waiting for permission to live your life. What are you waiting for?" I didn't have an answer. She died on a Thursday morning. Emily was holding one hand. I was holding the other. And when Sarah took her last breath, I felt something inside me break open. Not grief. I mean, yes, grief too, but something else, something like terror. Because I suddenly understood, really understood for the first time in my life, that time doesn't wait. It doesn't care about your plans. It doesn't care that you're not ready. It just runs out. Sarah was 49. We were going to grow old together once, back when we got married at 26. We were going to travel when we retired. We were going to be those cute old people holding hands in the park. We had time, except we didn't. And here's the thing that really haunts me. Even when we were together, we didn't use the time we had. We were always tired, always stressed, always dealing with one crisis or another. We kept saying, when things settle down, and maybe next year, and once we get through this rough patch. Things never settled down. Next year never came. The rough patch was just life, and we waited through all of it. I'm not telling you this to make you sad. I'm telling you this because you need to understand something that I didn't understand until it was too late. Life is not a dress rehearsal. This is it. This is the show. You're in it right now. And every moment you spend preparing for life, waiting for life, earning the right to live life, that's life passing by. You're not going to feel ready. You're never going to have enough money. There's never going to be a perfect time. The conditions are never going to be ideal. And if you wait for all of that to line up, you'll wake up one day and realize you're 68 years old and you spent your entire life in the waiting room. After Sarah died, I did something crazy. I quit my job. Not retired, quit. I was 51, had plenty of money saved, and I just walked away from a career I'd spent 25 years building. Everyone thought I was having a breakdown. My colleagues, my family, even Emily looked at me with concern. But I wasn't breaking down. I was waking up. For the first time in my adult life, I asked myself a simple question. If I had 4 months left, like Sarah did, how would I spend it? The answer was clear. Not in an office, not in meetings, not optimizing someone else's business strategy. So I stopped. I spent the next year doing nothing productive, nothing impressive. I traveled alone. I read books. I learned to cook properly. I went to therapy and actually dealt with my stuff instead of just working through it. I sat in cafes and watched people. I called old friends I hadn't spoken to in years. I showed up for Emily in ways I never had before. And you know what I discovered? I had been so busy trying to earn a life that I forgot to live one. All those years, I thought I was being responsible, adult, mature. I thought I was doing what you're supposed to do. Work hard, achieve things, build security, plan for the future. But I wasn't building anything. I was just running. Running from what? I'm still not entirely sure. Discomfort, maybe? Uncertainty? The terrifying possibility that if I stopped moving, I'd have to face myself and wouldn't like what I found. Here's what nobody tells you about success. It doesn't fix anything. You think once you achieve X, you'll feel different, confident, secure, happy, complete, but you don't. You just feel like you, except now you have X. And the problems you had before are still there. Just wearing nicer clothes, I made partner and I was still anxious. I made more money and I still felt inadequate. I achieved every goal I set and I still felt empty, because the whole time I was trying to fix an internal problem with external solutions. And you can't do that. You can't earn your way out of not liking yourself. You can't achieve your way into worthiness. You can't busy yourself into meaning. At some point, you have to stop and face it. Face yourself. Face the question, am I actually living or am I just trying to prove something? I'm 68 now, 17 years since Sarah died, 17 years since I woke up, and these 17 years have been harder in some ways, easier in others, but infinitely more real than anything that came before. I still struggle, I still have anxiety, I still make mistakes, but I'm here for it now, present for my own life, and that makes all the difference. The hardest part about waking up at 51 wasn't leaving my career. It wasn't dealing with everyone's confusion or concern. It wasn't even the grief of losing Sarah, though that nearly destroyed me. The hardest part was realizing how much time I'd already wasted, how many moments I could never get back. Emily graduated high school and I missed it because I was at a conference in Frankfurt. I have no memory of what that conference was about, but I remember exactly how my daughter's voice sounded on the phone when she called to tell me about her valedictorian speech. Small, disappointed, trying not to show it. "It's okay, Dad. I know work is important." That sentence has haunted me for 26 years. My father died when I was 44. Heart attack. Sudden. He was 71 and healthy, coaching Little League the week before. I flew home for the funeral and spent 3 days sorting through his things, and you know what I found? Letters. He'd been writing me letters for years, not sending them, just writing them. Letters about his life, his regrets, things he wanted to tell me, but didn't know how. There was one dated 2 weeks before he died that started, "David, I'm proud of you, but I worry you're making the same mistakes I made. You're so busy proving yourself that you're forgetting to enjoy yourself." I never got to talk to him about it, never got to tell him I understood, never got to ask him what mistakes he meant, what he learned, how he'd do it differently. We always think we have time for those conversations. We don't. After I quit my job, I spent a lot of time thinking about what went wrong, how I ended up at 51 having achieved everything and experienced nothing, and I realized something that changed everything. I had confused motion with progress. For decades I was moving, working, achieving, climbing, building. I was exhausted, constantly, but I told myself that meant I was doing something important, that the exhaustion was proof of value, but I wasn't going anywhere. I was just running in place, faster and faster, wondering why. I never arrived. You know what actual progress looks like? It's quieter. It's a conversation with your daughter where you're fully present. It's a morning where you wake up and don't immediately feel dread. It's a moment of genuine connection with another human being. It's doing something just because it brings you joy, not because it advances your position. These things don't feel productive. They don't look impressive on paper. You can't put them on a resume or brag about them at dinner parties. But they're the only things that matter. I learned this slowly, painfully, over years. Let me tell you what else I learned. The people you love are going to die, and you don't know when. My mother is 91 now. Every time I see her, I'm aware it might be the last time. And you know what? That awareness makes me present. I listen to her stories even when I've heard them before. I hold her hand. I tell her I love her. Not because I'm some enlightened person now, but because I know what it feels like to run out of time with someone. I have friends who are already gone. Stephen, my college roommate, died at 53. Aneurysm. We'd been meaning to take that trip to Ireland for 20 years. We never did. He died thinking, next year, next year. My brother is 65 and just had a cancer scare. Turned out to be benign, but for 3 weeks we thought we were losing him. And all I could think was, when's the last time we really talked? Not surface stuff, not logistics, but really talked. It had been years. We talk now, every Sunday, not because I'm scared he'll die, but because I finally understand that this is what life is. These connections, these moments, not the big achievements or the impressive accomplishments, just two brothers on the phone sharing their weeks. Your body is not going to work forever. I'm 68. I'm in decent shape because I finally started taking care of myself, but everything hurts in small ways. My knee reminds me it exists. My back has opinions. I need reading glasses. I can't eat whatever I want anymore without consequences. But here's what really gets you. Your energy changes. I don't have the stamina I had at 40. I can't pull all-nighters. I get tired earlier, and time feels faster. When you're young, a year is a huge chunk of your life. When you're 68, years slip by like months used to. I blinked and my daughter got married. I blinked again, and she had 2 kids. I blinked, and those kids are in elementary school. The thing I would tell my younger self, use your body while it works. Take the hike, dance at the wedding, play with your kids, travel before your knees give out. Stay up all night having deep conversations. Your body is a gift with an expiration date, and you don't know what that date is. I can't do half the things I wish I'd done when I was 35 and convinced I was too busy. Money matters, but not the way you think. I made a lot of money in my career. I mean a lot. More than I ever needed. And you know what it bought me? Options, security, comfort. Those things are valuable. I'm not going to pretend money doesn't matter. It does. But here's what it didn't buy me. Time with my daughter, a good marriage, self-respect, purpose, joy, connection, meaning. I know people who have very little money and are genuinely happy. I know people who have enormous wealth and are miserable. The difference isn't the money, it's what they prioritize. After I quit, I lived on about a quarter of what I used to make, and I was happier. Not because being poor is noble or whatever. I had enough, that's key, but because I stopped using money as a scorecard, stopped letting my bank account determine my worth. You need enough money to be secure, to not worry constantly, to have health care and housing and food. Beyond that, it's just numbers. And you can sacrifice your entire life chasing bigger numbers. Don't do that. Figure out what enough means for you, and then stop. Use your remaining energy on things that actually matter. The things you're afraid of probably won't happen, and if they do, you'll handle it. I spent so much of my life afraid I wasn't good enough, afraid I'd fail, afraid people would judge me, afraid I'd make the wrong choice and ruin everything. And you know how many of those fears came true? Almost none. The things that actually went wrong in my life were things I never saw coming. Sarah's tumor, my dad's heart attack, my own health scare at 59, kidney stones turned out fine, but terrifying at the time. All that energy I spent worrying about hypothetical disasters was completely wasted. The real disasters came from blind spots I didn't even know existed. And when they came, I handled them. Not gracefully, not perfectly, but I got through them. We're more resilient than we think. The regrets I have now aren't about the risks I took and failed at. They're about the risks I didn't take because I was afraid. You're not going to figure it all out, and that's okay. I'm 68 and I still don't have life figured out. I still make mistakes. I still have doubts. I still wonder if I'm doing it right. But I've stopped waiting to figure it out before I start living. That was the trap I fell into for decades. I thought, once I understand what I'm doing, once I have a clear plan, once I'm confident, then I'll really live. But clarity doesn't come from thinking, it comes from doing. You don't figure out your life and then live it. You live it, and slowly, messily, you figure it out as you go. Some of the best things in my life happened because I just tried something without knowing how it would turn out. After I quit my job, I started volunteering at a literacy center. I had no idea what I was doing. I just thought, this seems meaningful, let's try it. That was 17 years ago. I still volunteer there twice a week. I've helped dozens of adults learn to read. It's the most important work I've ever done, and I stumbled into it completely by accident. If I had waited until I figured out what I wanted to do with my life, I'd still be waiting. The story you tell yourself about your life determines your life. For years, my story was, I'm the guy who works hard and achieves things. That's my identity. That's my value. And that story wrote my life. Every choice I made supported that narrative. Work late? Of course I'm the hard worker. Skip my daughter's play? Well, I'm the responsible one who provides. Ignore my marriage? I'm building something important. The story justified everything. It wasn't until Sarah died that I realized I can change the story. I'm not stuck being who I was at 25 or 35 or 45. I can decide right now to be different, to tell a different story about who I am and what matters. So I did. My new story became, I'm someone who shows up for the people I love. I'm someone who's present for my own life. And when you change your story, everything changes. Different choices make sense. Different priorities emerge. Different possibilities open up. You think you are who you are, fixed and permanent. But you're not. You're just telling yourself a story about who you are. And you've been telling it so long you believe it's truth. It's not. It's just a story. And you can write a new one anytime you want. Most of what you think matters doesn't matter. I spent years caring intensely about things that, in retrospect, were completely meaningless. Office politics. Who got promoted? What people at the firm thought of me? My car, my watch, my title. None of it mattered. Not one bit. It felt important at the time, urgently important, but it was all just noise. You know what actually mattered? The Tuesday nights when Emily was little and we'd make pancakes for dinner and she'd tell me about her day. The weekend I took off to help my brother move and we spent the whole time laughing about stupid stuff from our childhood. The morning I sat with my mother after my father died and we just held hands and cried. These tiny, private moments, no witnesses, no applause, no recognition. Those are the things that built my life. Everything else was just decoration. You're going to die, and you don't know when, and that should change everything. I don't say this to depress you. I say it because it's the most important thing I've learned. We all know we're going to die. Intellectually, we know this. But we don't know it. We don't live like it's true. We live like we're immortal, like there's always tomorrow, like we can put things off indefinitely and somehow it'll all work out. After Sarah died, after watching her run out of time at 49, I started living differently. Not recklessly, not impulsively, but intentionally. I started asking myself, if this was my last year, would I spend it doing this? Most of the time the answer was no. So I stopped doing those things. Would I spend my last year in meetings I don't care about? No. Would I spend it holding grudges? No. Would I spend it trying to impress people I don't even like? No. Would I spend it stressed and anxious about things I can't control? No. So why was I spending my regular years doing those things? I couldn't come up with a good answer. When you really internalize that your time is finite, everything clarifies. The bullshit falls away. The pretense drops. You stop doing things you hate because you think you're supposed to. You stop hanging on to relationships that drain you. You stop caring what strangers think. And you start doing what matters. Not what looks good, not what's impressive, what actually genuinely matters to you. For me, that meant rebuilding my relationship with Emily. It meant therapy. It meant volunteering. It meant calling my mother every day. It meant making amends with people I'd hurt. It meant finally writing the book I'd been thinking about for 20 years, still haven't published it, probably never will, but I wrote it, and that matters to me. It meant living like my life was actually mine. Here's what I wish someone had told me when I was 30. You're not preparing for life. This is your life, right now, this moment, and it's passing whether you're ready or not. You can spend it waiting to be worthy, waiting to be ready, waiting for the perfect circumstances, or you can just live it. Messy, imperfect, uncertain, scared, just live it. Because one day you'll be 68, looking back, and the question won't be, did I achieve enough? It'll be, did I actually live? And I want you to be able to say yes.